Hello, everyone. Welcome to Two Authors Books and a Beverage. And I have my beverage. Mary has
And
her.
mine.
And our guest, Jill Burrell, has her beverage. So we're excited this evening to be chatting with Jill. Jill is from northern Utah, north of Salt Lake City, in case our viewers out there have no idea where northern Utah is. Anyway, Jill comes to us as an author, and she writes sweet romance, some with suspense, right? And then we need to know when she has time to write. Gee, she has 7 kids. She's got 4 boys and 3 girls, and she's a grandma. You look too young to be a grandma.
Yes, you do.
Thanks.
And other things are going on in her life. So I'm sure she has to really pick her time to write. So I'm going to turn it over to Jill. Welcome.
Thank you.
Tell us about yourself and what you're writing now, and give us a look at some of your book covers. And we just want to know all about you.
All about me. Okay.
Yes.
Might regret asking, but here we go. I'll answer that question. Finding time to write is difficult some days. Other days I have tons of time, and it's difficult to get the words flowing. You know how that is as writers. It's like
that, yeah.
just because you
I do
time,
have a
it
question.
happens.
So,
Yes.
do you have a set time? Do you try and get up and write before your kids get up or anything?
I'm working on getting up a little earlier. I have kids getting up at about 6 o'clock in the morning. So I started kind of 5:30, trying to work 5. This morning happened to be 4:30. I woke up and my brain clicked on. I'm like, okay, I may as well get up and write. Doesn't always work like that, but yeah. So, and then I have kind of a morning routine with getting the kids off to school, and then I help my mother-in-law with some physical therapy, and then I usually finally get back to write around 11 or so, and I try to write throughout the afternoon until my kids come home from school.
What's your goal for the day?
I like to get about 1,500, but I don't make it many days.
Well, yeah, I know.
My current work in progress has been really slow. I don't know if it's just been life or what, but it's kind of been a slump, and it's taken way longer than it should. But it's come along. I'm getting there. But it's interesting to ask, because so I have 7 kids, and I originally went to college to be a teacher. I taught for just 1 year until I had my first child, and I chose to stay at home. So after being a stay-at-home mom for 20 years, I was asking myself, what am I going to do when my youngest goes to kindergarten? And thought about all kinds of stuff. I happened to visit my dad down in southern Utah, on the farm where I grew up during spring break. And he says, I have a story I want one of you girls to write. He's talking to me and my sister. I'd never written a story. So I'm like, well, let's hear it, because I've always been an avid reader. And I thought it was an awesome storyline. Great storyline. I listened very intently and started getting ideas in my head, but I'm like, I'm not going to write it. I'm not a writer. But then I got another storyline in my head that just wouldn't leave as well. So I decided, it is just, you get voices talking to you in the head. So when my daughter, my youngest of 7, started kindergarten, I started writing. And so I wrote his story first, and then my story that was in my head next. And I kind of made them part of a series that were kind of interconnected a little. They're standalones, but interconnected.
Right.
So, and I didn't really tell him I was writing the story. I felt like I needed to do it the way I needed to do it. Just kind of make it my own thing. But a year later, 6 months, 7-8 months later, I gave him a copy of the story that I had written. Obviously, I had written it much differently than he would have, but he liked it. He says it's better than I could have done. So that felt good.
That's good.
And then he passed away a couple of years later after that. So I was kind of glad that I didn't drag my feet, that even though that story went through many revisions and kind of changed a lot, I was glad that I shared it with him before he passed away. So anyway, so I'll just share this with you if I can. It's called Rescued.
And that's his story?
That's his story, the one that he inspired. I wrote it first and then went back. I wrote other books in the series, and then I went back and wrote what I call a reader magnet. And
Ooh.
and that the reader magnet ended up being the first book I actually released. This one's an office romance.
Okay.
And then this one is a little bit of suspense. It's a second chance at love.
Okay.
Single mom, a man whose wife was killed in a car accident and his baby was kidnapped from the car. And so it's got that little bit of mystery that builds throughout the story. And of course, they're both learning to love and trust again and everything. So that's what happened. And then the story I had stuck in my head was a little bit more of a romantic suspense, but I made it one of the cousins was introduced in the first book.
Okay.
And that's this one.
Okay.
And then another brother that was introduced in the first series as well.
Wow. Okay.
So I made it an interconnecting series all in a small town. And after that, in this series, I wrote kind of an antagonistic young widow who just was always throwing herself at the guys. I never planned on writing her story and painted her a little bit of a witch. But, we talked about those voices you get in your head.
Yeah.
And she just kept talking to me. She wanted her own story. So I did a break-off series. She was hard to redeem because of the way I had written her. So I started the break-off series in the same small town. Rich widow and who couldn't have kids of her own, and a single dad.
Where are you published? Are you self-published or are you published with a publisher?
I chose to go the indie route. I
Okay.
had some interest from a publishing company. And I looked at it and I had 4 books close to being ready to publish. And I didn't want to wait the years that I felt like it was going to take. I knew some other people that were going with them, and it was taking a long time. So they didn't want to do that. So I chose to self-publish.
Yeah. I think both Judy. Whoops, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I just went ahead and set up my own publishing company, Cherry Creek Press.
Oh, wow. Did you did? Huh.
To do that with.
Nice. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both Judy and I have been with a small publisher, and now we're both self or indie. I don't know why I said self. I always say indie until tonight.
Same.
So,
Yeah.
So how many books you have out now?
I have 6. So this is the brother to this, and then I'm working on the other brother.
Nice
So
brothers.
I'll have 7. Hopefully, a couple months it'll be done,
Good.
and it'll be
That's
ready
great.
to put it out there.
So what are you working on now?
I'm working on the other brother for this family here. I'm
Okay.
working on the other brother.
Okay.
And what's it going to be named? Do you know?
His name is Rudy, and it's going to be called Changing Lanes.
Oh, okay.
And I made the mistake of kind of delving into, on the one with the single dad, he has a teenage daughter. And I kind of delved into her a little bit in that story. And so now I've got readers asking, well, I want to read Savannah's story when she grows up. So,
Or you could do a young adult one right now.
well, I'm going to go ahead and write it next, but I'll probably kind of do, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, kind of jump it and then bounce to, her grown up kind of current day. And then in the one I'm working on right now, I have another young guy that I introduced that I'm like, oh, I think readers are going to want to see a happy ending for him. So I was only planning on writing 3 books in this series, but it's growing. So we'll see if it ever ends. And then I have another series I plan to base in the same small town that are younger siblings of the first series, of the guys in the first series.
Isn't it funny how some of your characters in your books says, I want my own story,
Yep.
And then I had a reader the other day said, oh, I just read one of your books, and she was telling me what it was. She says, so what happens to the chief? This is one of my Western historical books. And I go, he rode off in the sunset.
What do you mean?
He says, but I want to know what happened to him. I go, he didn't have his own story. You know, he didn't speak to me, but he sure heard. She did.
Yep.
She
And
did.
that's
Yeah.
a problem. If your characters don't speak to you, if they're done and they ride off into the sunset, but your readers want to, I've tried to write something for a reader before, it doesn't work.
It's hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the reason why I'm struggling with my current work in progress is it's called Changing Lanes. I've got a country boy and a city girl, and she's making kind of a major lifestyle change. And she's struggling with that because it's, you know, she's been in the corporate world, and now she's trying to decide is being a mom and a homemaker enough? And I was originally going to paint it that way, but she started talking to me, and it kind of changed my whole plan for the story, my whole outline. And so it took me a long time to develop her and reconnect with her and figure out what she really wanted in her story. And now it's been kind of like pulling teeth to get it. I think I'm on the right track, but it's just getting it out of the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like you've done a lot of work. I'm still flabbergasted that you're in Utah. I had no idea. So, and we may have met. No wonder you look familiar. So, have you lived here all your life?
I grew up in southern Utah on a farm, and then moved up here as I was getting ready to start teaching. Met my husband. We moved to Kentucky for about 5 years. He worked with the military contracted. And so we lived in Kentucky for 5 years before we came back about 15 years ago.
Okay.
So yes, mostly in Utah my life with a little stint in Kentucky.
There you go. So now, where is Hooper? Is it Hooper or
Hooper? You know, if you say it like
how do you say that? Yeah. Where is that exactly?
It's west of Ogden, out towards the lake, but a little bit north of the Great Salt Lake.
Okay. So do you know Marie Higgins that lives up there?
I don't. I've been
Okay.
at conferences or places where she's been, but I haven't formally met her, no.
Oh, okay. Okay. She used to hang with us too at URWA.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to meet her with URWA.
Okay. Okay.
I know of her.
I need to tell you our time has come to an end, and that it's been fun chatting with you.
It has been.
I'm so glad to get to know you. We need to know your website, so be sure to go on to Two Authors Books and a Beverage and give us your website. As you're chatting with somebody may have a question for you, and when you go on and check, because some people come on late and will want to know something and ask you a question.
And most people lurk. So
Yeah, I hear. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
So I'll get this up a little bit later, everybody, and I will have your website on it. And okay.
I think that will be great, and we'll look forward to chatting with you for the next several days anyway.
Good. I'm looking forward to it because I've got some promos coming up. So free books and stuff like that.
Share.
Great.
Okay.
Good.
We'll
Thank
see you guys.